For 500 years, humanity had lived quietly among the stars. They did not rule, they did not threaten. They followed the rules written by others and paid the price asked of them. To the wider galaxy, humans were patient, predictable, and small. That belief would soon prove fatal. On the outer edge of human space, the colony of Haven Ridge orbited a pale blue gas giant. It was a peaceful place, built for farming, research, and long lives. No defenses worth naming guarded it. There had never been a need. At least, that was what everyone believed. Ethan Cole stood inside the colony's traffic control tower, watching supply ships drift in slow arcs through the void. He had done this job for 12 years. Most days were dull. That day felt wrong. The sensors began to flicker. At first, Ethan thought it was a system error. The displays showed mass readings where nothing should exist. The numbers climbed fast, far too fast. He tried to call Central Command, but the channel returned only static. Across the station, alarms began to sound. Not the standard warning tones, but deep, harsh signals no one alive had ever heard before. Layla Marl was in the habitat ring when the gravity shifted. The floor trembled under her feet. Lights burst overhead. People screamed as artificial gravity twisted sideways, throwing bodies into walls. She grabbed a railing and felt the metal bend like soft clay. Outside the station, space itself seemed to fold. A dark shape emerged without light or heat. It was not a ship in any design humans knew. It was vast and silent, its surface smooth and wrong, like something that did not belong in reality. No warning was sent, no message followed. The first strike came as pressure. Haven Ridge did not explode. It collapsed. The station's outer sections crushed inward as gravity surged beyond control. Whole sectors vanished, crushed into nothing. The gas giant's ring shattered as if struck by an invisible fist. Ethan never finished his last transmission. The tower folded in on itself, and then there was nothing left to record. Within 6 minutes, Haven Ridge was gone. Across human space, long-range sensors detected the event. Data streams flooded monitoring stations on Earth and dozens of colonies. Analysts stared at readings that should not be possible. A human settlement had been erased without energy discharge, without debris fields, without survivors. The Galactic Concord responded within hours. The official statement was calm and cold. The loss of Haven Ridge was labeled a spatial instability event. Regret was expressed. An investigation was promised. Humanity was advised to remain calm and avoid military action. On Earth, in a quiet underground facility, Claire Bennett studied the raw data before it could be filtered. She noticed patterns hidden beneath the noise. The signatures matched old theories, banned ones, concepts humanity had abandoned long ago, not because they failed, because they worked too well. Claire sent the data to a secure channel marked inactive for centuries. The system accepted it instantly, as if it had been waiting. Elsewhere, Noah Price stood before a wall of stars in the diplomatic quarter. He read the Concord statement again, his jaw tight. 500 years of cooperation had bought humanity polite words and empty sympathy. In deep space, far beyond trade routes, something else moved. The dark shape that destroyed Haven Ridge did not retreat. It advanced, slow and certain, toward the heart of human territory. Humanity had been quiet for 5 centuries. The galaxy mistook silence for surrender. The first scream had already been heard. The days after Haven Ridge fell were filled with silence that felt heavier than noise. News channels repeated the same official statement again and again. A spatial failure, an accident. No hostile force detected. People watched the screens and felt something cold settle in their chests. Noah Price stood inside the diplomatic chamber, facing a wide circle of non-human envoys. The room was calm, clean, and cold. Soft light reflected off alien symbols carved into the walls. Everything about the place was designed to slow human emotion and control human words. Noah did not feel calm. He had read the data. He had seen the raw sensor logs before they were edited. Haven Ridge was not lost to chance, it was erased. An envoy from a tall insect-like species spoke first. Its voice came through a translator, flat and polite. It expressed regret. It praised humanity for its long history of cooperation. It advised patience. Noah listened without interrupting. When the envoy finished, Noah stepped forward. He asked one simple question. Why were human defense sensors disabled minutes before the event? The chamber grew quiet. Another envoy answered. It said the systems were outdated and unstable. Their shutdown was for safety. It added that such measures were standard across all member species. Noah knew that was a lie. Human systems were the only ones under direct Concord control. They had agreed to it centuries ago in exchange for trade access and peace. He asked another question. Why was no warning issued when foreign mass signatures entered human space? The response was delayed. Then came a careful answer. The Concord had detected nothing unusual. Noah felt anger rise, sharp and clear. He forced it down. He thanked the assembly for their concern and left without another word. Back on Earth, military analysts studied the ruins of Haven Ridge in silence. The images did not look like destruction. They looked like removal. Whole sections were missing, cut cleanly from space itself. Ryan Knox sat in a small flight bay on a patrol carrier near the frontier. He had been ordered to hold position and observe. No engagement allowed. No warnings transmitted. Just watch. His ship's sensors began to light up. Far ahead, near an unclaimed system, several non-human warships drifted in tight formation. They were testing weapons. The energy patterns matched the same impossible readings recorded during the destruction of Haven Ridge. Ryan reported it. Command acknowledged the message and told him to disengage sensors. He did not. He watched as a test beam fired into empty space. The beam bent, twisted, and vanished. A moment later, a distant asteroid field folded inward and disappeared. No explosion, no debris. Ryan felt his hands tighten on the controls. This was not a test. It was a threat. Back on Earth, Claire Bennett sat alone in the underground archive. The room was old, built before humanity joined the Concord. The systems inside were sealed, untouched for centuries. The data she sent earlier had triggered something. A dormant interface glowed to life. Lines of text appeared, written in human code but marked forbiddance. Project names long erased from history filled the screen. Claire understood now. Humanity had once explored weapons that shaped gravity, space, and cause itself. They had locked them away not because they feared using them, but because they feared what others would do if they learned. She opened a secure channel. The message went to people who had not spoken to each other in decades, engineers, strategists, observers, all part of a network that never truly shut down. The message was short. Haven Ridge was not an accident. In deep space, the dark shape continued its slow advance. No messages were sent, no flags were shown. The Concord believed humanity would wait. They believed wrong. Something old had been awakened. The first human counter-signal did not come as a speech or a warning. It came as silence breaking. Across Earth and its colonies, systems that had not been active for hundreds of years began to wake. Power grids rerouted energy without commands. Hidden facilities unlocked doors sealed by time. Old satellites shifted their orbits, aligning with points no one remembered programming. Most people noticed only small things at first. Communication delays vanished. Navigation errors corrected themselves. Then deeper systems began to move. In a secured command center beneath a mountain range, Jack Harper stood before a wall of screens. He had retired 30 years ago. His rank had been ceremonial since then. Now his clearance worked again. A young officer beside him looked confused. She asked who authorized the reactivation. Jack answered with a calm voice. The same people who planned for this 500 years ago. He studied the incoming data. The dark object that destroyed Haven Ridge was not alone. Others like it waited beyond map space. Their movement was slow because it did not need speed. Nothing had ever stopped them before. On the frontier, Ryan Knox felt his ship vibrate as systems came online without his input. New interfaces appeared across his display. They were clean, simple, and unfamiliar. A single line of text appeared. Observe, do not engage. You're not alone. Ryan swallowed and leaned back in his seat. His sensors suddenly extended far beyond their normal limits. He could see deeper into space than ever before. What he saw made his breath catch. Human ships were moving. Not from ports or stations, but from hidden positions between stars. They were dark and silent, shaped with no markings. Ryan realized he had flown past some of these regions his entire career, never knowing they were occupied. On Earth, Claire Bennett watched as her terminal filled with confirmations. Old research nodes acknowledged her signal. Facilities she believed destroyed reported full readiness. Some were not even in human space. She felt no pride, only focus. The first human action came quietly. Near the same unclaimed system where Ryan had observed the weapon test, one enemy warship vanished. It did not explode. It did not transmit distress. One moment it existed. The next it did not. The remaining ships halted at once. Their commanders demanded answers through the Concorde. None came. Instead, human channels opened across controlled space. Not messages. Data. Clear, raw, and undeniable. Proof of weapon tests. Proof of hidden strikes. Proof that Haven Ridge was never an accident. Noah Price stood again before the assembly. This time, he was not asking questions. He stated facts. He named locations. He showed timelines. He did not raise his voice. The envoys argued. They denied. They claimed misunderstandings. Noah waited until they finished. Then he told them humanity was withdrawing from all imposed defense restrictions, effective immediately. The chamber erupted. Outside the assembly, Concorde enforcement fleets began to mobilize. They believed speed would save them. They believed humans would hesitate. They were wrong. Across dozens of systems, enforcement fleets found their engines unresponsive. Navigation failed. Power levels dropped to zero. Ships drifted, helpless, crews alive but unable to move. Human systems did not fire weapons. They rewrote conditions. Jack Harper watched the results without emotion. This was not revenge. It was proof. The dark shapes in deep space slowed. For the first time, something unknown hesitated. Humanity had not struck in anger. It had responded with control. 500 years of silence had been preparation. The galaxy had just heard humanity speak without words. The galaxy did not calm after the first human response. It tightened. Trade lanes closed without warning. Concorde stations stopped answering human calls. Patrol ships took defensive positions near human borders, not to attack but to watch. Fear had replaced control, and fear made decisions fast. On Earth, emergency councils met in sealed rooms. Civilians were not told everything, but they felt the change. Prices shifted, news feeds slowed. Old civil defense systems returned to public channels, systems no one had trained for in generations. Jack Harper moved through the underground command center with steady steps. He listened to reports without comment. Every system behaved as expected. That was the point. Nothing here was new. It was old, tested, and hidden. He ordered the next phase to begin. Across human space, deep-range beacons activated. They were not weapons. They were markers. Each beacon locked a region of space into a stable pattern that human systems could shape and predict. To others, those regions became difficult to enter. Drives misaligned, sensors lead. Space itself resisted passage. Human borders hardened without a single shot. Ryan Knox was ordered to move closer to the unclaimed system. His ship now traveled through corridors of controlled space that felt smooth and exact. He realized that humans were no longer flying through the stars. They were arranging them. Ahead, the remaining enemy ships remained still. Their formation was tight, defensive. They sent repeated signals, demanding explanation, demanding authority. Ryan did not answer. He recorded everything. On a distant human colony, Claire Bennett stood inside a facility older than the Concorde itself. The walls were thick, built for pressure and time. At the center of the room, a large structure rotated slowly, bending local gravity in gentle waves. This was not a weapon. It was a tool. Claire adjusted parameters and watched space settle into clean lines. She understood now why these systems were hidden. They did not destroy, they corrected. Elsewhere, Noah Price received a private request. A senior Concorde mediator wanted a direct meeting. No audience, no recording, Noah agreed. The meeting took place in a neutral station orbiting a dead star. The mediator spoke first. It admitted that humanity had been underestimated. It said the attack on Haven Ridge was meant to test limits, not start a war. Noah listened. The mediator asked what humanity wanted. Noah answered without pause: security, control of its own defense. No oversight. The mediator warned that such demands would shift galactic balance. Noah replied that balance had already shifted. Humanity simply stopped pretending otherwise. The mediator left without agreement. In deep space, the dark objects adjusted course. They no longer advanced in a straight line. They began to spread, probing the edges of human-controlled regions. They found resistance. Their field slipped. Their internal structures showed strain. For the first time in their long history, their movement cost effort. Jack Harper watched the data and allowed himself a single breath. The response was working. But he knew this was not the end. It was the moment before escalation. He authorized limited demonstrations. In 3 distant systems, empty and unclaimed, space folded inward. Stars dimmed, then stabilized under new rules. The changes were visible across half the galaxy. Not destructive, permanent. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer reacting. It was shaping outcomes. Across Concorde space, panic spread through leadership circles. Old assumptions collapsed. Humanity had never been weak. It had been waiting. The dark forces paused again. The universe adjusted its expectations. And humanity prepared for what would come next. The first true counterstrike came without anger and without noise. That was what frightened the galaxy most. In the unclaimed system near the frontier, one of the dark enemy command ships attempted to move again. Its engines flared with strange energy, forcing space to bend around it. For a moment, it pushed forward, cutting through the resistance humanity had shaped. Then the system changed. Claire Bennett watched the readings from her station. She did not touch a control. The response was automatic. The space around the ship corrected itself, snapping back into a stable state. The enemy vessel did not break apart. It did not explode. It simply stopped existing. Every sensor confirmed the same result. No wreckage, no radiation, no distortion. The ship had been removed from relevance, as if it had never been part of the universe's story. The remaining enemy ships froze. Across Concorde space, alarms erupted. Military leaders demanded answers. Scientists argued. Some called it a weapon. Others called it impossible. Humanity called it a boundary. Jack Harper addressed a secure council of human leaders. His voice was calm and even. He explained that what happened was not destruction, it was denial. The ship tried to force reality to obey it. Humanity forced reality to remain stable. He made one thing clear. This response would remain limited unless forced otherwise. That statement was recorded. It was not shared publicly. Ryan Knox hovered near the edge of the system, watching the enemy fleet struggle with confusion. Their formations broke slightly as commanders argued. Some ships attempted to retreat. Their drives failed. Others powered weapons but did not fire. Ryan felt a strange mix of fear and pride. Humanity was not attacking them. Humanity was showing them that attack was pointless. On Earth, public broadcasts finally shifted tone. Leaders spoke honestly, though carefully. They admitted Haven Ridge was destroyed by a hostile force. They promised protection. They did not promise peace. People listened in silence. There were no cheers, no panic, just understanding. Noah Price stood alone in his office, reviewing intercepted Concord messages. Many leaders were afraid. A few were angry. Some were already planning to surrender authority in exchange for safety. Noah forwarded those messages to Jack Harper. Jack read them and nodded once. The galaxy was dividing itself. In deep space, the dark objects began to withdraw. Not fully, just enough to reassess. Their ancient certainty had cracked. They had never faced a species that reshaped the rules instead of breaking them. Humanity did not pursue. Instead, a single human vessel moved forward. It was small, unarmed, it carried no visible shields. It transmitted a simple signal across open channels. Human space is closed, do not test it again. The message was not repeated. The galaxy waited for retaliation, none came. Days passed, then weeks, no further strikes. No sudden attacks, trade lanes remained tense but open. Concord fleets kept their distance. In the quiet, humanity continued to work. Defense grids expanded. Hidden shipyards revealed themselves only as needed. Civilian evacuation routes were mapped and tested. Humanity did not prepare for victory, it prepared for survival. Claire Bennett shut down her station for the first time in weeks. She slept for 6 hours, then returned to work. The systems she helped awaken were only a fraction of what humanity still held back. Jack Harper looked at the long-range projections and allowed himself no comfort. He knew the truth. This was not the end of the war. This was the moment the universe learned that humanity would no longer be shaped by others. If the galaxy pushed again, the response would not be a warning. It would be a shift that no one could undo. fear moved faster than fleets. Across the galaxy, governments that once ignored humanity began digging through records. Old treaties were reopened. Early exploration reports were reread with new eyes. Patterns appeared that no one wanted to admit they had missed. Humanity had never rushed. They expanded slowly. They accepted limits. They agreed to inspections and restrictions without protest. For 500 years, they built nothing that looked like dominance. Now, every historian saw the truth. Humanity had been learning the galaxy while the galaxy stopped watching them. Emma Brooks sat in a quiet archive on a neutral world. She was a civilian historian, not a soldier or diplomat. That was why the Concord allowed her access. They believed knowledge was harmless. She reviewed early contact footage between humans and the first Concord envoys. The humans were polite, careful with words, quick to compromise. What stood out now was not what they said, but what they never promised. They never promised weakness. Emma requested interviews with captured enemy officers from the frontier conflict. The Concord approved, hoping to understand the new balance. The officers were not defiant. They were shaken. One of them spoke after long silence. It said their leaders believed humans were unfinished, a species still learning how to exist beyond its home system. Restricting them seemed safe. It admitted something else. Every time humans faced pressure, they adapted quietly. When blocked from one technology, they explored another. When weapons were banned, they studied stability. When fleets were limited, they learned how to fight without fleets. Emma recorded everything and sent it to human channels. She knew it would spread. On a military platform near human space, Luke Carter prepared his task group. His ships were fully autonomous, no crew, no life support. No fear, the mission was simple. Intercept a Concord patrol that had crossed into a restricted region under the excuse of inspection. When the patrol arrived, Luke's ships did not surround them. They simply appeared ahead, blocking the path. The patrol commander demanded authority codes. Luke transmitted them. Old codes. Codes that proved humanity still understood the Concord systems better than the Concord itself. The patrol attempted to retreat. Space resisted. Their engines worked. Their power was stable, yet they could not leave. Every attempt shifted them back into the same position. Luke opened a channel. He told them to power down weapons and wait. He promised no harm. They complied. The galaxy watched as the patrol remained held in place for 12 hours, then released without damage. No shots fired. No threats spoken. The message was clear. Humanity could stop you. Humanity chose not to. On Earth, Jack Harper reviewed the growing list of systems now under human spatial control. Each one reduced the need for violence. Each one increased pressure on those who relied on force. He met with Noah Price in person for the first time since Haven Ridge. Noah asked a simple question. "How far are we willing to go?" Jack answered honestly. "As far as needed to ensure no one ever tests us like that again." Noah nodded. He understood. Diplomacy without strength had failed. Strength without control would destroy everything. Humanity was choosing a third path. In deep space, the dark forces watched. Their probes returned damaged or empty. Their calculations no longer matched reality. For the first time in their long existence, prediction failed. They did not understand humans. They had never needed to understand anyone before. Across the galaxy, smaller species began to adjust their positions. Some moved closer to human borders. Some asked for protection. Some simply stayed quiet and waited. Humanity did not announce leadership. It did not need to. The galaxy was already shifting around it. The truth spread faster than any fleet. Across Concord space, leaked records began appearing on public channels. Old agreements, hidden clauses, silent restrictions placed only on humanity. At first, Concord leaders denied everything. Then, independent analysts confirmed the data. Trust collapsed. On a mid-level trade world, citizens watched footage of human colonies building cities without ornament, fleets without banners, weapons without names. Humans did not show pride. They showed purpose. Emma Brooks stood before a small group of non-human delegates. They had requested the meeting, not the Concord. They wanted answers without filters. She spoke plainly. She explained that humanity never planned to rule, it planned to survive. Earth history was full of lessons where strength shown too early invited destruction. Humans learned to hide progress, not because they were afraid, but because they were patient. One delegate asked why humanity never warned the galaxy. Emma answered that warnings are ignored until they are proven. On the frontier, Luke Carter reviewed sensor logs from the dark forces. Their movements were changing. They were no longer advancing together. They split, testing multiple regions at once. Luke understood the meaning. They were searching for weakness. He sent the data to Jack Harper. Jack responded with a single order. Tighten the lattice. Across human-controlled space, beacons adjusted their alignment. Space became more ordered, more resistant to force change. The effect was subtle but absolute. It did not block entry. It made aggression costly. Ryan Knox flew patrol along a newly secured route. He passed civilian ships from other species, their captains careful, respectful. Some sent quiet messages of thanks. Others asked if they could stay. Ryan forwarded the requests. He did not answer. On Earth, public opinion shifted from shock to resolve. Memorials for Haven Ridge filled city centers, simple and silent. No calls for revenge, only demands for never again. Claire Bennett met with engineers half her age and twice as focused. They spoke in short sentences. They reviewed systems humans still had not activated. Some of them frightened even her. She reminded them of one rule. Do not use what cannot be controlled. They agreed. In Concord leadership halls, panic deepened. The galaxy had been built on balance enforced by shared fear. That balance was gone. Humanity did not fear the same things. It did not seek dominance. It sought certainty. Noah Price returned to the assembly one final time. He did not ask for debate. He announced withdrawal from all Concord military authority. Some envoys shouted, some pleaded. A few remained silent, already understanding. Noah ended his statement with a single line. Humanity will defend itself and those who choose peace. The chamber emptied without ceremony. In deep space, the dark forces made a decision. Several of their largest structures began charging energy at levels never recorded before. The build-up twisted surrounding space, stressing even human control fields. Jack Harper watched the readings and felt no surprise. This was expected. He authorized phase restraint. Across multiple systems, human response units adjusted reality margins just enough to absorb the stress. The dark forces expended vast energy for minimal gain. Their strength was real, but it was inefficient. Humanity had learned efficiency the hard way. The galaxy watched as ancient powers strained against invisible limits. No explosions, no fire. Just effort wasted against calm resistance. That was when understanding finally reached everyone. Humanity had not won by being stronger. It had won by refusing to panic, by preparing quietly, and by choosing when to stop holding back. The universe was no longer dealing with a quiet species. It was dealing with one that had decided it was time to be understood. The attack came without warning, just as humanity expected. Across 12 systems, Concord strike groups and Dark Force units moved at the same time. It was not an alliance but a shared decision. If humanity could not be controlled, it would be crushed before it reshaped everything. Sensors detected the surge seconds before impact. Jack Harper did not raise his voice. He gave a single order, execute counter pattern. Human space did not answer with fire. It answered with structure. As enemy fleets crossed into controlled regions, their formations stretched and warped. Distances between ships grew without movement. Communication lag increased until commands arrived too late to matter. Weapons powered up but could not lock targets that no longer aligned with expected space. Ryan Knox watched the chaos unfold from the edge of the system. His displays showed enemy ships drifting apart, some appearing closer than they were, others impossibly far. Pilots fought their controls, unaware that space itself no longer matched their instincts. The first shots were fired by the attackers. They missed. Not because of shields or speed, but because their aim assumed rules that no longer applied. Claire Bennett monitored the stability grids. Her hands hovered over controls she hoped not to use. The system strain was high, but within limits. Humanity had planned for this level of force centuries ago. She transmitted a single adjustment. Across the battlefield, gravity settled into tighter lines. Enemy vessels found themselves locked into predictable paths, unable to change course without tearing themselves apart. Some powered down to avoid destruction. Others pushed harder and vanished, crushed by their own aggression. Luke Carter's autonomous task group moved in. They did not fire. They positioned themselves at key points, acting as anchors. Wherever they held, space remained calm. Wherever enemies pushed, resistance grew. The battle lasted less than an hour. When it ended, no human ships were damaged. Enemy fleets were scattered, disabled, or gone. Survivors drifted, waiting for orders that would never come. Jack Harper ordered cease control. Space relaxed. Enemy ships that remained intact regained basic function. They were allowed to retreat. The galaxy watched in silence. On public channels, analysts struggled to describe what they had seen. There was no word for a battle where reality itself refused violence. On Earth, people stood in city squares watching feeds from the stars. There were no cheers. Just relief mixed with something deeper. Understanding. Humanity could have destroyed every attacking force. It chose not to. Noah Price prepared the message humanity had waited to send. It was short. Humanity does not seek war. Humanity will end threats before they grow. Any force that enters human space with intent to harm will be stopped. No threats followed, no demands. The message spread across the galaxy faster than fear. In deep space, the dark forces withdrew fully for the first time. Their ancient structures turned away, damaged not in body but in certainty. They had encountered a limit they could not break. Smaller species took note. Trade resumed along human borders. Refuge ships arrived asking for protection. Humanity accepted some and refused others based on behavior, not power. Jack Harper stood alone in the command center after the reports ended. The shift had happened. There was no going back. Humanity had crossed a line it could never uncross. But the line had not been drawn in blood. It had been drawn in control. The galaxy now understood a simple truth. Humanity did not win because it was violent. It won because it decided when violence was no longer allowed. The galaxy waited for what humanity would do next. After the failed assault, no fleets moved, no threats were spoken. Even the Concorde fell silent. For the first time in its long history, it did not know how to respond. Humanity did not rush. Days passed, then weeks. Jack Harper insisted on patience. He understood fear. A wounded power often strikes blindly. Humanity would not give anyone a reason to panic again. On Earth, Noah Price prepared a statement meant for every world, human and non-human alike. It was not written by politicians alone. Engineers, historians, and civilians all shaped its words. The goal was clarity, not comfort. The broadcast went live across open channels. Noah stood before a plain background, no flags, no symbols. Just a human face. He spoke calmly. He said humanity had remained fair for 500 years because it believed cooperation was stronger than force. He said that belief had not changed. What had changed was understanding. He explained that Haven Ridge showed what happened when restraint was mistaken for weakness. Humanity would not allow that mistake again. He made one thing clear. Humanity did not want control over others. It wanted control over its own survival. He ended with a single sentence. Humanity will stand. Choose your position carefully. The message ended. There was no applause. No response channel. Across the galaxy, reactions spread quietly. Some leaders felt relief. Humanity was not declaring empire. Others felt fear. Humanity was no longer bound. Emma Brooks watched the broadcast from a neutral station. Around her, delegates from smaller species listened in silence. When it ended, none of them spoke for a long time. One finally asked a question. If we stay quiet, will humanity leave us alone? Emma answered honestly. If you do not threaten them, yes. That answer carried more weight than any promise the Concorde had ever made. On the frontier, Ryan Knox escorted a convoy of civilian ships from a border system. The ships belonged to 3 different species. None had weapons active. Their captains followed every instruction without complaint. As they crossed into safer space, one captain sent a message of thanks. Ryan acknowledged it and said nothing more. He understood now humanity had become a reference point, a fixed object in a shifting universe. Claire Bennett reviewed system reports showing stability across human-controlled regions. Power usage had dropped, control fields no longer strained. The crisis phase was over. She allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. Then she returned to work. There were still systems humanity had never activated. She hoped they never would. In deep space, the dark forces continued their withdrawal. They left behind damaged probes and distorted regions of space that slowly healed under human influence. Their silence spoke louder than threats. They had encountered something they could not overpower or frighten. They had encountered resolve. Within the Concord, emergency councils fractured. Some members resigned. Others demanded reform. A few attempted to restore old authority, but no one listened. The galaxy had seen a new constant. Jack Harper received a final report summarizing the shift. Threat levels reduced. Borders stable. No hostile movement detected. He closed the file and looked at the projection of human space. It was not large compared to the galaxy, but it was firm. Humanity had not shouted its strength. It had demonstrated it once, clearly, and then stepped back. That was enough. The universe adjusted. And for the first time in centuries, humanity was no longer waiting to see what would happen next. Years passed, and the galaxy did not return to what it had been. The Concord still existed, but it no longer ruled by quiet force. Its councils became places of discussion instead of control. Many old leaders stepped aside. New ones spoke carefully, aware that empty authority no longer worked. Human space remained closed but not hostile. Trade resumed through clear rules. Borders were marked by stability zones that required respect, not permission. Ships that followed the rules passed without issue. Those that did not found themselves turned away without harm. On Earth, life continued. Cities grew. Children learned history that no longer ended in defeat or apology. Haven Ridge was taught not as a tragedy alone, but as the moment humanity chose clarity over fear. Jack Harper retired again, this time knowing the systems would remain steady without him. His work had not been about victory. It had been about ensuring no one could ever force humanity into silence again. He left command quietly. Noah Price returned to civilian life as well. His final act had been to refuse power when it was offered. Humanity did not need rulers beyond what it already had. It needed limits that could not be crossed. Claire Bennett led a small group that monitored the deep systems. Many of the most powerful tools remained sealed. Some were dismantled. Others were locked behind conditions so strict they might never be used. She believed that was the real success. On the frontier, Ryan Knox continued patrol duty. The stars felt different now. Not safer, but clearer. When unknown ships appeared, they approached with caution. They signaled intent. They waited for response. That had never happened before. Across the galaxy, smaller species adjusted to the new reality. Some formed regional councils. Some aligned loosely with human space, others chose isolation. All of them learned the same lesson. Force invited resistance. Control invited balance. The dark forces were not seen again. Their last known positions remained empty. The regions they damaged slowly healed as space returned to stable patterns. No victory was claimed. No pursuit followed. Humanity did not need enemies to kneel. It needed them to stop. Emma Brooks published her historical record years later. She wrote that humanity did not rise suddenly. It rose slowly by refusing to trade survival for approval. The galaxy had mistaken fairness for weakness. It paid the price in understanding. Her work spread across many worlds. In schools far from Earth, children of many species learned a new phrase translated into dozens of languages. Human restraint is not absence of power. It is control of it. On the anniversary of Haven Ridge, no speeches were made. A single signal light was lit across human colonies. It burned for 1 hour, then went dark. No anger marked the day. No pride, only memory. The galaxy continued to shift, but it did so around a stable center. Humanity did not claim leadership. Others naturally adjusted their paths. The universe had learned something simple and hard to forget. Humanity had remained fair for 500 years. Then it responded, and everything changed.